And are we starting?
Yep.
Are we on?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. And our first part of business is to approve the July 21st minutes that were posted, and hopefully you read them.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay. Now, Michelle, we're going to make you work.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'll have these on the screen for you also, but we'll be looking at the October financials. All good news to report. So this first page here, the first column here, you're looking at the year-to-date 2023 revenue versus 2022 revenue. Everything in that far column shows you the difference. We're up in income tax by $258,000 compared to last year. The revenue in admissions tax is up $729,000 from last year. Lodging tax is $137,000 in addition to what we saw last year. And the big change from last year to this year is our interest earnings. So we're seeing $850,000 more this year. As you can see in that first column, 2023 year-to-date revenue for interest earnings is almost $1.2 million. A lot of that is contributed to, we have our ARPA dollars sitting there, and we have a lot of them promised, but we are earning interest on those dollars, and we are allowed to put that in our general fund. So the interest earnings are sitting in our general fund, so that's a tune of $850,000 this year, greater than what we saw last year. On the expenditure side, in the middle there, you'll see our year-to-date expenditures are $27.4 million. This same time last year, we were just over $24 million. As we'll see in some of these later slides, the greatest difference will be in the transfer amount. As we all know, the admissions tax and parking tax is implemented for 2023 at 8%. So we expected the additional revenue, and so that revenue has been promised for many different areas, and those are all in the capital fund. So we transfer those admissions and parking tax dollars from the general fund over to the appropriate fund. This chart here shows you the employee count. On that first column, it goes by the month. If you look down to October, we are at 247 full-time employees. This far column here is going to show you historically where we've been at the end of the year. So as we all know, prior to the pandemic in 2019, we had 252 full-time employees. We dropped drastically during COVID. We're starting to creep back up. A lot of that is contributed to our agreement with Cedar Point, where we agreed to hire 5 new police officers. So those are included in here. We're still short 2 police officers, but we did have it budgeted to increase their patrol by 5 police officers. And then we also had an agreement with the fire department that we hired 3 additional firefighters. So that's where the majority of the count changes are. Let me make this a little larger. So this top columns here in green is our monthly revenue versus our year-to-date revenue, and then where we are at for the budget. If we scroll down here, we're going to see that the total here, $29,465,889 is what we've received in our general fund for revenue this year. The budget was this, $29,389,050. So we have collected 100% of what we had budgeted in revenue this year. It's a great problem to have. As we saw in those first couple slides, interest income, we were not going to bank on that staying, and it depended a lot on how much of those ARPA dollars went out the door and how quickly, on what we would be getting for interest income. I can show you up here on the line for interest income. We had budgeted $665,000 is what we expected. So we're almost doubling the amount that we expected to see this year. But historically, that $665,000 was much higher than we've seen in previous years. So we did adjust the budget number for 2023, but to our benefit, those numbers are coming in higher than expected. Down here is our expenses for the year. In the general fund, first column here is just for October. The second column is your year-to-date. So year-to-date, we're looking at $27.4 million of expenditures. We have budgeted $0.8 million in expenditures. So we spent 84% of our budget this year. These columns here, the way this is broken down, wages and fringes, we're right on track. We have 1/4 of the year left to go. So, I'm sorry, less than a quarter of the year. We only have 2 months left to go. But we've only spent 74% of our wages and fringes and benefits budget for the year. So these other buckets here, the travel and training, contractual services, supplies and materials, those are percentages of the budget that we have spent. You'll see that right now we've done all of our transfers pretty much that we had budgeted for the year. So as we go on in, excuse me, in November and December, we'll make adjustments to the budget to do additional transfers as we see additional dollars coming in as needed. Does anybody have any questions on those?
Everything looks like it's going on track and as we had planned.
Absolutely. It's going a little bit better than planned so far, but we do have a lot of additional expenditures, and we have some concerning areas as we go forward. We do have issues with health insurance. We have seen another year of large expenditures in the health insurance fund. Last year, we had over $6 million in claims. Years prior, we've been closer to $4 million in claims. So being self-funded, that is an area of concern. We have been talking with the city manager, and we also have a benefits review committee that we're reviewing health insurance. Open enrollment will be here later this month, but we will probably be looking at doing a transfer from the general fund to help out our health insurance fund this year. There are some other funds that are going to need some assistance maybe. Unfortunately, the transit fund is probably going to need additional funds by the end of this year. So we have some additional expenditures as we go through these next 2 months that we'll be looking at additional expenses coming out of the general fund to subsidize those other funds. I don't know why the charts aren't coming up. I did have the slides for all the charts where we just look at the just look at it in the picture form, I guess, instead of what we just went through in number form.
And they're in color.
Where? Just like the computer. They were on the pages underneath that. But as we saw, everything is great as far as the revenue. We have the 247 full-time employees this year. Payroll stabilization, we have not done that transfer yet. That'll be at the end of the year. And that is looking to be a healthy balance still. We're at $400,000 in that fund. And expenditures are right on track, as we've seen.
Are we going to be going out for any notes or bonds or anything in the near future?
So we did the annual note issuance in, I think it was in August of this year. We have nothing else anticipated this year. Next year, when the Justice Center is finished, we'll be looking at doing some long-term financing for the Justice Center, but nothing additional this year for financing.
Well, it's nice to see the cash balances and everything staying up, because that seemed to help us when we went out after our ratings.
Mr. Chairman.
And that means so much.
It certainly helped us during the pandemic. We
Yes.
we had a little bit of a cushion to fall back on, which was very important. But I'd like to make, if I may, just a couple other observations. Ms. Reeder, thank you. There are some headwinds, as you point out. The General Assembly has its hands in our pockets again. They won't fund anything, but they'll make us fund it instead. So we see we're going to have some additional funding obligations with respect to police and police and fire pensions. They've fiddled with the income tax again, and so I'm sure you're going to report on that later. While our income is up, I'm a little concerned about where we see it being up. It's up only about 2% on income tax. I'd be curious to know whether you have any sources that show what income tax is in other municipalities, particularly in Ohio, how that is up. Wages are up more than 2%, so and employment is very good. So I would have thought we would have seen an increase greater than that. So that's a little bit of a concern long term. And I just want to make one other observation, please, which is that when folks look at the general fund balance, our reserves, if you will, and we have a target range of 15 to 20%. That is inflated at this point in time. You need to take a look at the annual average, because we go through this every year where we have the highest cash balance about this time of year, and then once Cedar Point closes down, that balance drifts, and so it drops down below that target rate by May. So it's a good, healthy balance, but it's in the target range still.
You may be able to call Rita, and I know they can't give you specific information, but they may be able to help Mr. Murray's question about how some of the other cities are doing. They can't name the cities, obviously, but just to find out, where that range is, and, if 2% is where it's at, and if everybody else is at 4 and we're at 2, that we have to take a look.
Sure. And I have, for our city here, our reporting is we are up in withholding tax by $175,000 compared to last year. Individual taxes are up $139,000, and then net profit has seen a decline of $93,000. So it is our withholding tax that is greater than last year, along with our individual tax returns. At this moment, the net profit is what we're seeing a decline in revenue this year compared to last year. And these slides are back up if you want me to put them on the screen so we can go through them.
I'm sorry.
The slides are back up here.
Yeah, yes, the nice colored ones that
Makes it easier.
Mr. Murray likes charts. And,
So this is just the general.
It really does help take a look at things, just real quickly.
So this is the general fund revenue. Blue indicates our income tax revenue going back 2018 to current 2023. You can see we're real similar to where we were in 2022. A little bit of an increase, as we stated previously.
Yeah, they're not showing up here.
There we go. Sorry about that. So now you can see the blue line. That will indicate our income tax from 2018 to 2023. The gray line is our admissions tax. As you can see, 2022, the 8% rate was also in effect, but that was due to us upon admittance, not like it is now in 2023. It's due the month following collection. The orange line down there is our lodging tax. It looks a little bit lower than some of the historical numbers in 2018 and 2019. Since 2020, we've been with the county, and they collect the Erie County lodging tax along with the city's municipal lodging tax, and that is remitted to us quarterly. So the end of September was the last quarter. That gets paid to the county in October. We will see that revenue in November. Last year, it was over $1 million that we saw in November from the county for the lodging tax portion. And having that with the county is beneficial for the county and also us. We can make sure that we have the same units paying the appropriate bed tax when it comes to transient rentals, Airbnbs, and things like that. The green here shows the overall general fund revenue. We're at $29.46 million in 2023. Again, slightly above where we were even in 2022, largely because of that interest income. And we've seen the increase in the income tax this year. This slide here is our expenditures, the top 5 departments. The gray line is the transfers. So the administrative support is where you'll see all of our transfers from our general fund over to the capital fund. And that increase, again, is because the admissions and parking tax increase. The red and blue lines, they kind of run together, but that's a police and fire department. Their expenses are pretty much neck and neck. Yellow and the green line there, the yellow line is our municipal court, and the green line is our horticulture, which is our forestry division, and also the public realm. And they've been pretty consistent. The only one that looks like the drastic increase is that transfers. Again, as we go through and have those additional admissions tax dollars further out, that chart will look more normal as we go out more years. This is the expenditures by category. Yellow line is the transfer amount. Blue line is our employees' wages and fringes. We are down still in 2023 compared to what we spent in employees' wages in 2018. A lot of that is because our decline in employee count, but also because we do have the ARPA dollars that is subsidizing some of our employees still. And that is on the horizon, and we're looking at that for the 2024 budget, as that is the last year in 2024 that we can use ARPA funds for wages. So you'll see those numbers for wages and benefits as we get out of 2024 will continue to rise slightly as we bring employees back to being paid out of the general fund. The orange line is our contractual services, pretty consistent over the years there. And the gray line at the bottom is our supplies and materials, and very consistent to where it's been in historical years. These are our total expenditures for the general fund. So we have $27.4 million in expenditures, and we have the revenue to cover that. As Mr. Murray was talking about earlier, here's our general fund cash balance. So in 2023, at the end of October, we were at $7,979,063. So historically, you know, this chart goes all the way back to 2014 because that was previous to having issue 8. And we were sitting at $5 million in 2014. And now in 2023, we're at $7.9 million. But that is, like Mr. Murray was saying, is we got to keep into account, you know, what is our expenditures, because our expenditures have also increased drastically. So we'd like to target to be between a 15 to 20% reserve in the general fund for the unexpected, I guess. So we got to have that balance there to balance the budget. As Mr. Murray said, we have November and December to go. We have a lot of year-end expenses. We have a debt payment that's due December 1st. We also have 3 pays in the month of December instead of the typical 2. So we do have some larger expenditures coming yet through the end of the year. And this last slide is our number of full-time employees, the 247 full-time employees. Largest departments are the police and fire department. And then all other departments are listed there also.
If I can change things around just a slight amount. Mr. Murray mentioned, again, Columbus is in our pocket again. And you have the income tax change, Bill 33 on there. As long as we're having the discussion about the financial statements, if I can flip that, am I going to mess you up by
No.
going? Yes.
Nope.
Okay. Okay, that way we can hear what's going to change.
Sure. Do you want me to dive in?
Go for it.
All right. So as Mr. Murray was talking and Mr. Nichols was just talking, there is a House Bill 33. It was signed into law on July 3rd this year. And it changes some municipal income tax rules and regulations. Some of them don't affect us, but we do have this on the commission meeting for November 13th to get these enacted in codified ordinances for the city of Sandusky. One of the changes that the state did, they put it into law that you can no longer tax anybody under the age of 18. We weren't doing that anyway, so that was already in our code that we were not taxing anybody, so there was no change needed for our local code. There has been an extension for not-profit filings. They're extended by 1 month. There's the late filing penalty is now capped. So they were able to charge we were able to, in every city in the state of Ohio was able to charge up to $150 as a late filing penalty that has now been reduced, and it's capped at $25. So we are making that change as stated, you know, we're ordered to. So that change will come with the budget. You know, I'm not seeing a drastic decline. A lot of the penalties for late filing, it's $150, but what people owe in interest sometimes is just as great as the penalty. So we'll lose a little bit in the actual penalty amount, but we still have the interest that we will be collecting from the late filers. But again, we're trying to make sure people only have a late filing once, you know, and that's where having the $150 penalty was pretty steep, but it also made people pay attention that I'm not going to do that again. So hopefully with the $25 penalty now, we don't have a lot of repeat offenders. Hopefully people still learn that, hey, you know, I was late. I don't want to do that again. It is a reduced penalty, but we're ordered to do it by this new House bill. So we will match what the state says, and the penalty will be maxed at $25 going forward.
It's not going to be a horrible effect. And again, you'll have that figured into the budget when we look at the budget on the 8th.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Sorry to go on the line, but I thought it just worked in with what we were discussing with the finances.
Absolutely, yep. And so we have the full ordinance available, and it will be presented to commission, like I said, on the 13th.
Now, did anybody have any questions about that? Let's talk about the audit. And first time I looked at this and I saw 23, 27, I'm thinking, gee, I know she's good, but you know, how's she good? Then when I talked to her, I realized what she had put there.
So
Go for it.
the way I had it listed on the agenda, it says audit 2023 through 2027. So last time we met was in July, and we were going through the RFP process with the state on selecting the auditor for us in the future for years 2023 through 2027. So I just wanted to let everybody know that Ray and Associates was the top winner in that, so they will be doing our audit from starting this fiscal year through 2027 going forward.
And because they have two divisions, they will also be able to do the financial statement.
Correct, correct.
So, again, just for information purposes. So, does anybody have any questions on anything we've just gone over? I don't know, do I need a motion to accept all of those? I can't, never remember. I didn't
No.
think so, but that's, okay. So, if nobody else has any questions, I am sure when I go to the public. Sharon?
I have a couple issues here. I was reading the audit. I don't know if you can explain this. I'm just a resident asking some questions here. There were some major deficiencies in this audit and overestimated items. And I just wondered if somebody's got an explanation for this, how serious this is. It says major deficiencies on the findings.
I'm happy to answer that. So the finding that you're seeing is just a reclassification error. So when the financial statements were prepared, they had them in a restricted class, and when the state comes in and looks at them, they said, okay, these funds shouldn't be in this class, they should be over here. The net position at the bottom of the financial statements doesn't change. So it was just a matter of what classification they should have been in. So it's just the state's opinion on where they should go versus where Ray and Associates thought it should go.
And with some of these different programs that went through because of COVID, everybody seems to be having issues and stuff where they should go. Not necessarily where the bottom line is, where the cash is, there's no problem. Does it go in bucket A or does it go in bucket B? The final numbers of everything is balanced and it is there. It just, you know.
Well, they said overestimated the Justice Center. That was $880,000. You put that in there twice.
So that's a different issue. That's not a classification issue. That was on the ARPA reporting. So the ARPA reporting on that I have to report to the ARPA, it's the U.S. Treasury, on a quarterly basis of the funds. So there is a notation of that $880,000, and what that was is on the reporting, there's a body of the report, and the Justice Center project, we're paying for the design of the Justice Center out of the ARPA dollars. And when I did that report, I had that project in there, and then the next quarter that I went to report, I had that project listed again of, the first quarter we spent, I don't remember what it was, but the total project is $880,000. And then the next quarter when I went to report, I put that project back in at $880,000 and just put what we expended that quarter. But because I had that project listed as $880,000 total project for both quarters, that's where the state came in and said, hey, I did that wrong. That obligation amount, yes, it's the same project for $880,000, but the way it was listed in the body of the report, it looks like it's listed twice. It was only one project for design of the Justice Center, and the total expenditure is absolutely perfect. There's no issues on timing of the report, but when I listed that, I had the obligation listed twice for the same project.
Okay, my next question on that deficiency thing is some of these,
Question? Because it's just a.
okay, fine, but I have another question on this thing here. Sorry about this, Al. Some of these deficiencies happened in federal grants, so I want to know, is our federal grants in any kind of jeopardy because of these deficiencies?
Through the chair to Ms. Johnson, absolutely not. So this ARPA reporting was, this program's ever evolving. These federal dollars, we've received them, and as it's stated in that correction plan, all of those issues have been fixed. It was a matter of deleting it, making it one project instead of listing every quarter separately. So it's all been fixed. There's no issues, and there's absolutely no issue of losing any federal dollars because of it.
Okay. Now, my second issue here, and I'll be done, is I'm reading about the Cedar Point merger, and we have a MOU on Cedar Point. We never did a contract. We just have a handshake like on Cedar Point. This is a big project that we had a handshake on, and they are merging now with Six Flags.
Which project, I'm sorry, I may not have heard you right. Which one did we just have a
Current
handshake?
events, Ms. Johnson is referring to the Cedar Fair Six Flags merger.
Yeah, but
Is he? Are you not up on this, Al? Are you not up on the merger?
She's getting there.
That's not what I asked you. You said we had a handshake about something. I didn't know what you were talking about with the handshake.
That's what I call the MOU, because it's not officially a real contract. It's a memorandum of understanding, okay? There's a lot of money on the line, a lot of projects here. So I'm asking, they seem to be pulling their headquarters out of Sandusky down in Carolina. I want to know if there's any jeopardy of us losing this admission taxes revenue that Cedar Point promised us for these projects. Is it in jeopardy? What is going on here?
First of all, I don't think we could answer that question. I don't feel it is, but again, Cedar Fair, or whatever we're going to call it now, sorry about that, Steve.
Cedar Fair?
Cedar Fair still is going to be active in Sandusky, Ohio. They are going to be in Sandusky, Ohio. Their finance and administration is still in Sandusky, Ohio. Yes, they've moved in name to Charlotte, and you would stop me when I didn't hear Brian correctly. Okay.
You're doing okay.
And that obviously they have different agreements with a lot of different cities, but I do not see anything that's going to change. They're not going to move Cedar Point.
Mr. Chairman, if I may address the other question about the admissions tax. It's on the books. It's not going to be reversed.
Right.
And so absolutely, there's no risk that we won't collect the admissions tax going forward. And we do have the MOU with Cedar Point. We've had Cedar Fair now with Six Flags. I'm assuming that will transfer to them. It is a handshake, you're right, but we've had an excellent partnership with Cedar Fair, Cedar Point over the years. We expect that to continue. We look forward to completing the projects that we've discussed in the past, and I don't have any reason to believe that there will be any change whatsoever. So I'm confident.
Okay, I guess what I was concerned with is the MOU might have some legal understanding there where they could possibly pull out and take back that admissions tax. That's all what I'm concerned about, you know?
Fair concern, but it's not risk.
Okay, all right. I'll hold you to that, Dennis.
Good. Do so.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I have.
Anything else, ma'am? Anything else?
She said that's all she had.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may address something,
Yeah,
though.
pardon?
I'd like to address something, if I may.
Sure. Yes, sir.
So, you know, there's a lot of nonsense on Facebook right now. There are people sitting behind computer screens in their underwear, spewing nonsense, and they're scaring the public, and they're causing people to be concerned about things that they shouldn't be concerned about because there aren't issues there. They're saying that this audit report is hidden. It's not hidden. It's on the city's Facebook. It's on the city's website, for goodness sakes. If it's hidden from you, it's because you're not literate. It's all right there. If you have questions, you can call Ms. Reeder. You can contact any member of the Finance Committee. For you to sit at home and spew nonsense and lies is offensive. If you have questions, do what Ms. Johnson does. She comes here, she asks questions, and she gets answers. Instead of hiding in the dark, spewing this nonsense, show up here. Show up at a commission meeting. I dare you to. I don't think you've got the guts, because you'll be confronted by all of us, by the staff, and by the facts. And that's the last thing you want to have to address is the facts. And let me tell you something else. You people who sit out there and constantly criticize, know this. You want good government? You've got good government. You don't know what you have. What you're doing is you're causing good public servants to say, I don't know if I want to work for a city. I don't want to work for an institution that has all these nasty things that go on in the dark in Facebook and other social media sites. You try recruiting people to run for city commission. They don't want to run because of the nonsense that you write on social media. That's what's going to hurt city government in the long run. This government is perfectly accountable. We have all of our minutes that get put on out on the public, on our city's website. The agendas are there, the audits are there, these meetings are broadcast. Total transparency. We couldn't be any more transparent unless we came into your living room or your basement or wherever you hide and say these crazy things. Now look, there are some findings here. We had some audit findings. That happens. I happen to serve on a publicly traded bank board. All banks have audit findings. It's part of the process. That's why we have audits, so that we can have someone come in and say, this is how we want to do it consistently across the state. You did it wrong here. We want you to do it this. I mean, I cook a lot, and I have lots of utensils, and I have a drawer for things that get hot and things that do not. My children laugh at me, but that's how I divide the things into the two drawers, and that's how I know where to look for what I need. We put things in the wrong drawer, okay? It's not a big deal. There's nothing being hidden, and I wish you folks would stop it, because you're causing good people to not want to run, and you're causing grief to good, hardworking, honest public service. Thank you.
And Mr. Murray, expound with the confusion and everything that's going on with.
Can you put your mic down, Al? We can hardly hear you.
How's that? Better?
I don't even know if it's on. Is it? Is it on?
You try this way, Ellen.
Okay. How about that? Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. Again, going to Mr. Murray's comments, if there was missing money or anything, that would be a whole different items. We still get a clean opinion on the financial statement as a whole. With all these programs that are going on with the federal government, state government, if I lined up 8 different CPA firms, I could get 8 different answers, but still come down to the same bottom line. And I think the auditors back there will agree that sometimes we just have a disagreement. Now, having said that, everything at the bottom line balances. There is no money missing. Everything is there. Everything is accounted for. And as I said before, it may be in the wrong bucket, and we may have to put it from bucket A to bucket B, but that's just audit changes. And it happens, as Ms. Marie indicated, we're both on a publicly held board. The auditors just sometimes want something moved to a different area. Not that anything's missing. They think it is in the disclosures that it might look better here as opposed to there. It's lipstick. I guess that's what I call it. And it's nothing that anybody did wrong. That's why the auditors come in, so that we have everything accounted for down to the bottom line. And I am 110% confident of the bottom line that the money is there.
Alan, one more comment. I just think the city should get out in front of this. This merger took everybody by surprise, and the deficiencies, if they were just minor deficiencies, I think that after the audit, that the city should come up and explain to the residents that there were a couple of minor deficiencies, and we have corrected that. You know, get up in front of this before it starts to explode, okay? I'm just asking to explain it to the residents, okay? If you get out in front of it, there's no problem explaining this. But when you don't say anything, this is what happens. So I'm just saying, I'm here to clear the air on some of this stuff. So I thank you for explaining all that, that this Cedar Point thing is still stable, and it's not going to get rocky over some legal loopholes in the MOU.
I'm not so sure that the two companies know what they're doing yet. I'm sure that there's, Mr. Summersville, am I correct that there's committees on both sides? There are audit committees, there are finance committees. Everybody's trying to say, okay, this is what we need to do. They're probably 3 to 6 months away. Is that a safe?
Yeah, like our public announcement said, sometime in the first half of next year, so we're months away from finalizing everything.
I am sure our city manager will be in touch with the people over at Cedar Fair and be talking with them and to make sure that everything is status quo like we had it before. Is that correct? I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, I've been in contact with Cedar Fair's corporate people and the local folks. So Mr. Witherow and I had a conversation yesterday, and he assured me that everything's going to remain the same. Cedar Point's going to be Cedar Point. They're staying here. The corporate staff that's here now is intending on staying here. So it's more a merger of teams, combining resources and making things better for both companies in general. So, it's already been mentioned, the emissions tax is not a Cedar Point tax per se, it's an admissions tax throughout the city of Sandusky. So it doesn't matter if it's called Cedar Point, if it's called SeaWorld, if it's called Kings Island, whatever the name of the park is, as long as they're within the city limits, the admissions tax applies to them, just like any other business that's in town. So I think there's a misconception that because we have a deal with Cedar Point, that if they change the name or they change corporate, that the admissions tax isn't going to apply. And, everybody here knows that that's not factual. So obviously there's some, angst and concerns, but I'm very confident with our relationship with Cedar Point throughout the decades, centuries, that everything's going to remain the same, and we're going to continue our partnership with them.
Thank you for your, again, as Mr. Murray said, if you have a question, we have an incredible accounting staff here and the city manager, and they can answer any of these questions because we don't know what the questions are until the Cedar Fair figures out what they're doing, okay? They're over there scratching their head. No comment. Sorry, Steve.
Fine.
Mr. Murray, your comments very well taken. That transparency can't be any more clear in this city. So, having said that, anything else? Okay.
Okay. If I could, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Stuart Hastings. He's our law director. He started Wednesday, and he's still here today.
Still
thankfully.
And he hasn't told any of us that we're wrong yet.
I'm surprised I wasn't asked a question, but Mr. Murray is absolutely right. The admissions tax was a law passed by the city of Sandusky that applies to any business, as the city manager says, in Sandusky. We did not need agreement of Cedar Fair to pass such an admissions tax. But we did get a handshake deal where we promised to spend some of that admissions tax in certain ways.
Thank you. And first of all, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hastings comes with a vast amount of government experience. He was in the city of Cleveland for 17 years, and with their law department, he had a few more staff than he has here. They had 54 lawyers, he told me. So, but he's been in, that government for 17 years, and then he was the law director in Beechwood for the last 2 years. And I'm excited to have him on board. Very knowledgeable. Mr. Murray and Justin Harris sat on the selection committee along with Ms. Reeder and Aaron Klein, and we were all thoroughly impressed with his background, his experience and knowledge. So we're extremely happy that he chose to come work in Sandusky.
Thank you. And again, you couldn't have picked a better city.
I don't think so.
So, any other, first of all, the soapboxes are all down right now, and I think we've hopefully cleared the air on some miscommunications and what's going on. So, unless anybody on the committee has another question or wants to bring. Now, we need to go into executive session for the auditors. That's their rule. And he's shaking his head back there. I was going to try to do it in an open session, and I was told no. So.
Mr. Chairman, do you need a motion to go into an?
Yes, I do.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, would you take the roll?
Sure. Ms. Twine?
Yes.
Mr. Thomasula? Mr. Monter?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Mr. Stahl?
Yes.
Mr. Rusop?
Yes.
And Mr. Allen?
Yes.
And Mr. Orzak?
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Okay, so we are